Am I on yet, Jared? Yes, now I am. Good morning. Great to be here. Dallas mentioned a year ago, I was actually supposed to be here. I think it was probably March or something like that. I was supposed to be here and sharing with you about World Hope, and that got tipped on its head. But I am so glad to be back here today and share with you about World Hope. And first of all, I want to say thank you to you as a congregation for your support of World Hope and of the programs that we have around the world. Am I talking too loud, Jared? No? All good. World Hope International is an overseas organisation. I've been the CEO. I've been running it for 21 years now. The USA was established in 1996, so we are in our 25th year of providing opportunity and dignity and hope alongside our Wesleyan partners wherever the Wesleyan Church is in the world. World Hope comes alongside to provide the compassionate arm of discipleship. Each April, we have an appeal called Walk for Hope. I was reflecting on this just last evening. Yesterday was our first launch of Walk for Hope. 2018, Dallas came to me and he said, it'd be a really good idea if we did something, like a endurance fundraiser. 2019, we launched our first one. 2020, it got side-railed because of COVID, and we had to wait to do it in September. And 2021, our USA partners are joining us this year. So there are people walking in America, there are people walking in here in Australia to raise funds for World Hope's Hope Fund, which helps us to fund our programs, our clean water programs, our anti-trafficking programs, and our education programs. This year we're focusing on Enable the Children, and I'm going to be sharing a bit more about our Enable the Children project later on. It's not too late to start. Simply, it is an endurance fundraiser where people go, you know what, I want to do that, and you set your own target of walking, you set your own financial goal, and you help partner with us together to bring our programs around the world. So if you're interested, please come and grab a flyer. You can walk only on the weekends. You can walk just one day. You can walk only during the week. You can walk with friends. You can walk in your backyard. The simple thing is stepping up with World Hope and taking part in it. So come see me afterwards. And I can tell you more about it and how to get involved. Today we're going to talk about generosity. Generosity is not a number, it's an attitude. A couple of months ago I was up in Nambour. Dallas and I got an Airbnb, and I was preaching at Nambour Church, and it was actually this sermon I was preaching. And the Airbnb it didn't meet our expectations. It was less than what we had expected. And it wasn't a comfortable sleep that night. And I was awake, tossing and turning. And I was actually preparing my review for our stay there. And God tapped me on the shoulder and he said, what are you preaching about tomorrow morning? And I thought, okay, generosity is an attitude, not a number. And I needed to have a better attitude about these people who were trying to make a business, make a living, earn an income during this time of uncertainty with COVID. And I had to flip my attitude and go, you know what, we are providing this young family with a business, with an income. And so my attitude had to be one of generosity. Today we're going to talk about Abraham. Abraham was the first Hebrew patriarch that we read about in Genesis, and he left his home in in Mesopotamia because God had actually called him to begin a new nation. God hadn't told him where that was at this time, but he headed out. He later learned that that was going to be Canaan. And as we read the story of Abraham, we see that he obeyed God's command. He obeyed them without question. Throughout his whole life, God promised him that he would have this seed. Not throughout his whole life. God did promise him at one point in his life that that his seed would inherit the land, and that he would be the father of many nations. But as yet in this story that we're in this portion of the scripture we're going to look at in a minute, God hadn't actually fulfilled that promise with Abraham and Sarah. He hadn't given them a child. So let's read Genesis 18, verses 1 to 8, starting at verse 1. The Lord appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre, where he was sitting at the entrance of his tent in the heat of the day. Abraham looked up and he saw 3 men nearby. When he saw them, he hurried from the entrance of his tent to meet them, and he bowed low to the ground. He said, "If I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord, do not pass me by. Do not pass your servant by. Let a little water be brought, and then you may all wash your feet and rest under this tree. Let me get you something to eat so that you can be refreshed, and then go on your way, now that you've come to your servant." "Very well," they answered. "Do as you say." So Abraham hurried to the tent, and he said to Sarah, "Quick, get 3 seahs of the finest flour and knead it and make some bread." Then he ran to the herd and he selected a choice, tender calf, and he gave it to his servant, who hurried to prepare it. He then brought some curds and milk and the calf that had been prepared, and he set it before them. And while they ate, he stood near them under a tree. So Abraham was 99 years. Do you want me to move this? Okay. 99 years of age. Sorry about that, folks. Abraham was 99 years of age at this time. He'd lived a full life up to now. And as I said, he'd received that promise, but it hadn't been fulfilled yet. The promise that he would be the father of many nations and have many descendants. Today we're going to look at generosity. Generosity is not a number, it's an attitude. To have an attitude of generosity, we need to be expectant and looking for opportunity. It was the heat of the day. It was the middle of the day, and Abraham is sitting in the doorway of his tent. He notices 3 travelers. He's not lying under a fan somewhere or out under the shade of the tree. He's sitting in the doorway of his tent looking to see who's going to walk by. And he notices the travellers. In that time, there weren't many inns or accommodation places along that route, and so it actually was common for travellers to be hosted by families on that road in that dusty, remote region. But even though it was expected, we see here that Abraham was eager to host these travellers. He ran to greet them and invite them to stay for food and for water. He told Sarah, "Quickly, bake some bread." He had a posture of expectancy. He was looking for an opportunity to bless someone. At World Hope International, we seek to empower and to collaborate with grassroots community to effect sustainable change in partnership with them. One of our ministries in the Philippines is with a minority group called the Agay tribe. We have a child sponsorship program, and some of our children come from this group. And the sponsorship enables these children through school fees through helping to purchase uniforms so that they can go and attend school. The school that they attended was actually established by the Wesleyan Church in the Philippines and has been run by the Wesleyan Church there for many, many years. Now, these children in this village, they have to walk some distance to get to this school each day, to and from the school each day. Part of their journey included walking through a river. To do that, what they do is they wrap up their shoes and their dry, clean uniform and their school books into a plastic bag, and then they'd stick it on their head and they would go through the water, sometimes up to their waist. And on the other side, they'd change out of their wet clothes and get their dry uniforms on and dry shoes and go to school, and then reverse on the way back. And younger children were carried on shoulders by parents or older brothers and sisters. We have a Wesleyan church in this village, and as a community, they came to us, to World Hope, and they said, we want our children to receive an education. We see it as very important, but there's a barrier that makes it very difficult for them to attend school each day, and it's especially not safe during the heavy raining season of the monsoons. The river rises, and the children, it's unsafe for them to go through, or they just don't get to school at all for quite some time. They told us that they discussed it as a community and had actually drawn up plans to build a bridge. They said they could provide the labour from the people in their community. All they needed was funds to purchase material to build this bridge so that their children could attend school. To us, it was an absolute no-brainer. So we said, yes, of course we can do that. We got some of our donors on board to help fund this bridge that you see here in this picture. It's a physical bridge which provides safe passage for these children to attend school, but it's also a bridge of opportunity. Education provides an individual with an opportunity, and as Nelson Mandela says, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. World Hope is always looking for opportunities to empower, and our donors, you, are partners with us in that. With the global pandemic, we had to make some changes, but we were actually fortunate with many of our countries around the world. Most of our country staff in the Philippines are Philippine nationals. So we didn't have to pull any expatriates back. We had qualified, experienced, capable Philippine people, and in many of our countries, national people that could keep doing what World Hope does, and we were blessed with that. But back to the Philippines. So our staff were able to continue when the Philippine government shut the schools down. The Philippines has been one of the longest lockdown, severest, strongest, whatever you want to call it, the toughest lockdown worldwide. And so what our staff were able to do when they were permitted to go to the village, they actually went and helped the students to continue to study by providing school books and assisting the families and supporting them in the home learning so that the children didn't miss out on too much school. And what did they use to get there? The bridge. Together, we are expectant and looking for opportunities to minister and to help lift people up. That's what World Hope is about. The other point I want us to look at today is that Abraham and Sarah gave from their ordinary and their everyday. We see that Abraham asked Sarah to bake bread, and then he himself went and picked the small animal for roasting, which he had his servant cook. And when the food was prepared, Abraham himself served the food to his visitors. They gave of what they had, and they gave it willingly, participating in the preparation and in the serving. Their attitude was, I get to serve, not I have to serve. World Hope's Enable the Children program in West Africa, in Sierra Leone, is a multifaceted project that provides home-based therapy for children living with disabilities in Freetown. It seeks to promote an understanding of disability issues within the Sierra Leonean communities and family units, and it mobilises support for people living with a disability. Most of the children in our program are supported by our child sponsorship program, and we have children available for sponsorship both in our Philippine program and in our Sierra Leone project down the back there. If you want to come see me afterwards, it's just a plug, $49 a month. Helps to provide support to this project. But there's a church that partners with World Hope, and a number of people in that church support this program, sponsor children through Enable the Children. A couple of years back, this church felt that God was prompting them more, to do more than just send their money each month. They felt God was asking them to step up and do more. So every year, this church funds a beach day, an outing for all the children and the families who are part of ETC. So let's just take a look at this video for a minute. Thanks, Jared. Isn't that amazing? This year, our Walk for Hope is supporting that project. We're trying to get wheelchairs over to Sierra Leone to help children who don't have access, because they don't have a wheelchair, they don't have access to education and basic health care. So come see me afterwards and see how you can Walk for Hope and help to support those children in our ETC project. But back to this church. This church, not only did they sponsor children individually, but they gave financially so that those children and those families could take a break from their everyday life. And they do that every year. But you know what? After they did it the first year, they said, you know what we need to do? This was before the world shut down. And no one's allowed to travel. But what they decided was they wanted to go and participate in the day. They spent their time and their finances to place value on these children and their families, to encourage them and to give them a day that they will always remember. This church went above and beyond. They not only sent funds for this special day, but they spent money on airfares to go and to give of their time to serve on the day and to show love and value. Generosity is not a number, it's an attitude. And extravagant generosity is not outside of anybody's reach. In Luke 2, Jesus is sitting in the temple and he tells his disciples, take a look at that widow over there, the widow who's just dropping in coins. She's giving a whole lot more than those Pharisees over there who are dropping bag loads of coins in. She's giving more because she's giving all she had. She gave extravagantly. She had an attitude of generosity. Now, I'm absolutely not advocating that you throw everything out, give away everything and just live in poverty and go destitute yourself. That isn't wise generosity. That isn't wise giving. But as God prompts you, and as you see a need, and as you see an opportunity, and as He asks you, give. The other week, a couple of weeks ago, I was speaking with one of our partner organisations in Papua New Guinea. There's this community that we've been working with for a couple of years now. This community, the young people, once they finish grade 8, there's nowhere for them to go except to walk, say, 300 kilometres to one of 2 locations to attend high school. It's super difficult going through different tribal groups. There are so many barriers. There's physical barriers, there's emotional barriers, and so many and financial barriers. We've been working with this partner, Strickland Basavi Foundation, to establish a school in the community so that the young people who finish grade 8 can go to high school and finish high school. Unfortunately, 2 attempts last year and this year have been put on hold because of COVID. But these young men have decided that they're not going to sit by idly. These young men who were able to go to high school, they wanted the young women in their community to have equal access to this education. And so they decided to use the skills that they knew that they had, the resources that they had around them in the bush, in the way of building materials. And they built the young women a house so that the girls who have to come further distance can have somewhere to sleep so that they can attend school. But you know what else they did? Not only did they decide to do this off their own bat, but they said, we want to build a veranda on the front so that the girls can have somewhere nice to sit. And that's generosity, extravagant generosity, going that extra mile. Generosity is not a number, it's an attitude. Abraham was sitting in the doorway of his tent looking for an opportunity to be a blessing. And when that opportunity came his way, he took it eagerly and he ran to do what was needed. He eagerly welcomed his visitors and warmly invited them to stay and rest and be refreshed with food and water. And he and his family provided what was needed. We've just had Easter, and we remembered the sacrifice of our Lord and Saviour Jesus Christ, the ultimate sacrifice. Jesus gave his life so that we could be saved and have life eternal. And as Christians, we are God's image bearers. As citizens of God's kingdom, we are called to live in love, creating a community of care and service where God's love is reflected in our lives and in our love for each other, whether it be here locally or overseas. It's a love that reaches out with compassion to the vulnerable. In the same way that Abraham had a posture of expectancy, a posture of looking for opportunity to be a blessing, and then he and Sarah gave what they had at hand. We are called to have a posture of generosity in the way that we live our life, not just financial giving, but in our words, in our attitude, in our actions. And that may be sponsoring a child. It may be taking up the challenge to walk for hope. I pray that God will show you this coming week as you go about your life where and how you can be generous in that.